That's crazy.
And the reunion. And you've got M blowing up with Hi, My Name Is at that time.
Crazy.
Then they record Still D.R.E. Okay? Now, here's the funny thing about that. So Dre called me one night. He's like, yo, I think I got the record. And I was like, what? And he goes, you need to come to the studio. I got the record. And I was like, and keep in mind, during the recording process, Jay-Z wrote a song called Malibu Dre first. Okay? Didn't come out right. So Dre's like, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean?
For people who don't know, Jay-Z wrote Dre's.
Well, we'll get, it's getting there. so we're at A&M. He calls me to A&M. It's Scott Storch's first night. And he's sitting in the back. It's Mel Man. I think Doc was there, some other people. And you hear him in the back just going bling, 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 bling. And the drum beat is playing, but I'm sitting there just going like, what the hell is going on? And he goes, well, Jay-Z's supposed to write a song. I don't know about do you remember the Malibu Dre? Malibu Dre was all right. Well, we're going to give him another shot. You know Jay, you know, because I had just broken Jay, you know what I mean? So he was like, is this the beat? And I was like, oh, hell yeah, that's the beat. And he goes, me and Snoop. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah, that's the beat. He goes, you can tee off on this? I'm like, that's the beat. And he's like, okay, send it off. 2 days later, he calls me up. He goes, you need to come back by the studio. I'm like, what? He goes, I think we got it. And I was like, what? And he goes, Still D.R.E. And I was like, what's Still D.R.E.? He goes, the fucking single. We got it. And I was like, oh, I'm on my way. So we go to record one, or encore, one of the two. I walk in, I hear that record, and I said, thank you. And I literally took it out of his hands. He's like, where are you going? I said, I'm going to go play it. And he's like, okay. And that I just put it on the radio.
I would love to hear the Jay-Z reference track to Still D.R.E.
I've heard it.
That'd be crazy.
It's hilarious to hear Jay doing it in Dre's voice.
Right.
You know, which is also kind of funny to hear M doing like, to a new house on a new hill. And how would you feel if, you know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, those references.
No, that's great.
You know what I mean? Like M wrote. I mean, what's the difference between me and you? You know, like all of those kind of all that's he wrote all that stuff for Dre. I mean, think how genius Eminem is. You know what I mean? Bitch Please Part 2. He wrote the whole fucking record. You know what I mean? Snoop's parts and his, I think. You know what I mean? He wrote the whole. I know he wrote Nate's parts, and Nate told me. You know what I mean? Like,
that's crazy.
And even until I collapsed. He wrote that for Nate. And Nate just came in and sang it. Oh, I'm doing my session work now. I'm like, what? I'm going over to see him. I'm going to go do my session work.
Shout out to Nate, dog, man. Rest in peace, man. The GOAT.
One of my best friends ever, and I loved him.
Yeah, he was great, man.
But yeah, so that's how it all started. And then I started playing. Literally, that's when I realized how much power we had. Because I took Still D.R.E., handed it to Steve Smith, and they played it on Hot 97 in New York. But it was like just hit him over the head with it. But then Power 105 came on. This is a little bit later. Power 105 came on in New York, and Jay-Z immediately went over there because, you know, people weren't fucking with Hot 97 like that. They weren't breaking their records and were threatening to take records off. And they just had the Little Kim shooting and all this kind of stuff. So I get a call, and it's like, yo, you need to go to Hot 97 and fix all this shit. And I was like, what? And they go, Summer Jam's not booked. Flex won't sign his contract. Jay-Z's on this new station called Power 105 saying fuck Hot 97, and they don't have a music director, and if you're going to New York. And so I went to New York and cleaned up the Little Kim stuff, finished booking Summer Jam, pulled Jay-Z off of Hot 97, and got Flex to sign his contract.
For people who don't know, Power 106 and Hot 97 were owned by the same company for a long time called MS Communications.
But Steve was the consultant behind both of them.
Right.
Now, what's even crazier is, so when Dre called me about the test run, 2001, keep in mind, I was working at Summer Jam. They did Hot 97. I see that Steve Smith owns the company with Brad Patrick and Randy Bazzelli that's doing all the staging. So that's what I used in Hawaii. Do you see what I'm saying? The Summer Jam infrastructure to do the Chronic shit, right? So when Dre said, I want to go on tour, He's like, well, I'll just use the people that we used in Hawaii because that was a great test run. Now, how do I get it across the country? Well, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, Jay Brown, who manages Jay-Z, his wife works for Magic Johnson. So I'm like, well, why don't we get Magic Johnson to be the promoter? And then he'll open up all the venues for us because he's fucking Magic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's like, good idea. Can you make it happen? And I was like, yeah. Jay Brown, tell Magic Johnson Dr. Dre want to talk to him. And we were on the road.
That's crazy.